Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. This will, I guess, for all intents and purposes, Parker, we can call this the pregame version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live because it is within 24 hours. Oklahoma Sooners will be kicking off to the Arizona Wildcats, the number 14 overall Arizona Wildcats in the Alamo Bowl. Who's the Valero Alamo Bowl, I have to say.
There you go.
Because if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. It is the Valero Alamo Bowl. That is the exact way you were supposed to say it in our world because that's who the sponsor is. But anyways, welcome you guys. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas. I hope the holidays are treating you guys well. And obviously the New Year's is rolling around the corner. And if we don't get to talk to you guys, well, we will, but we won't do a live. So those that just like the lives, hope you guys have a very happy New Year. Parker, I'm in Denver, Colorado, going to stay here for the next 48 hours, 36 hours or so to cover the game from here, help you guys do whatever I need to do on the back end, and obviously do the podcasts and all that type of stuff. But you're on the ground, and you've been on the ground since Christmas Eve. Our man Parker has been slumming it down there in San Antonio. Not really. He's at his in-laws. Let's call it what it is. You cheat. But anyways, he got to do family Christmas. Luckily, Valero Alamo Bowl is where Oklahoma ended up. If that's for Parker's sake, very lucky. And he has been down there, was there for Christmas for the live practice. He's been there for all of the pressers. Everybody wants to know, what's the vibe down there, Parker?
Well, gosh, I'll be honest. From what I've experienced, like the vibe is not all that different. I mean, the vibe is very business-like, task oriented, or I should say task at hand, goal oriented type of deal for this football team. Obviously, the cast of characters has changed a little bit. Brent Venables gave us the exact number earlier today. 70 scholarship players set to participate, or rather to be available in this game for Oklahoma, as opposed to the typical 85. They've had some losses due to opt-outs. They've had some losses to the transfer portal, mostly inconsequential, but when you get to talking about a guy like Caden Green, obviously you miss having him around, and he's somebody that you would like to have on the roster. But even so, you got 70 scholarship football players that, in Venables' words, are ready to finish what they started tomorrow evening in the Alamo Dome. Second appearance in 3 years in this game for Oklahoma. And if you look at the statistics, you look at the metrics, Arizona and Oklahoma are actually two pretty evenly matched teams. I will say the Sooners, I think, have a higher ceiling in terms of what they can do both offensively and defensively. The question simply becomes, well, how much of that can you unlock with a first-time play caller in Seth Luttrell? And I say first-time. Obviously, he's called plays before, but not at Oklahoma. And a first-time starter in Jackson Arnold at the quarterback position. You lose a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball, most notably Key Lawrence. Oklahoma shouldn't have any trouble filling the holes there. You got Peyton Bowen, you got Robert Spears-Jennings. It's going to be a challenge for Oklahoma to match up with that very talented Arizona wide receiver core and a quarterback in Noah Fifita that has been able to get those guys the ball. But all in all, I think most would agree that the Sooners have the upper hand in this football game, at least on paper. The game isn't played on paper. And obviously many are eager to see tomorrow night just how good Jackson Arnold actually is when deployed for a full 60 minutes. I think I know. We think we know. But we don't know for sure. We find out tomorrow night. It ought to be fun.
So, okay. So I guess we don't know. And everybody's talking him up. I mean, I thought it was really cool that you have your ringleader and Danny Stutzman get up there last night during the river walk ceremony, whatever they call it. And he starts chanting JFA, JFA, JFA to get everybody hyped for Jackson Arnold. Well, everybody's already hyped. I was watching Gabe Ikard and Teddy Lehman today because I was on that long drive, right? Like you just start sifting through podcasts at that point, right? Like when you know what I'm talking about. Everybody does it when you're on those long drives, particularly because I, I'm the type of guy that when I get on a podcast or I get on a live, I want to be able to have some talking points. And if I find something that they said very interesting, I want to hit on that. And I thought something Gabe Ikard said on the Oklahoma Breakdown was very, very poignant. And he said, look, Arizona is going to come in guns ablazing. Um, Jed Fish said that there's only been 8 guys, and they're all transfers that have played in a bowl game in their whole career. So this is all new to every one of their players. And then you look at what Oklahoma has been. Those players have never missed up. They've been here in bowls, and the other transfers that have come in have most likely come from a program that was of good stock, right? Unless they were FCS or a lower or G5 and they just happen to be the superstar on that G5 team. But this is old hat to Oklahoma. And Gabe kind of went out and said, look, if Oklahoma doesn't come out and they're not hitting on all cylinders and they don't match the intensity that Arizona comes out with, there's going to be a problem because it's one of those deals where, and we see it all the time in bowl games, where the team comes in and you think, or we all think we know what's going to happen. And then one team comes out flat and they get absolutely annihilated and made to look like a fool. And you know that's not really the case because you've watched 13, 12 other, talking points or data points, right, during the season to say that's not who that team is. But on that day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And with all the momentum Oklahoma has coming into this season, you have Danny Stutzman coming back. You have Billy Bowman coming back. You just got David Stone to sign. You just got another top 6, 7, 8 class in 2024. Venables third straight in a row of top 8 classes. And then you have all the other transfers they have coming in. You've got a new quarterback. You've got new offensive coordinators in both of them, obviously, and the co's. And so there's a lot of really solid momentum coming on. To keep that momentum, you have to win tomorrow. You have to win. You have to. I don't think I think it will be. It might just be a bump in the road, but I think it will be a big bump in the road if they don't go out and win tomorrow. Am I over exaggerating that? Because yeah, it's Alamo, but it's one of the more. This game is looked upon as one of the more intriguing matchups in all bowl season across the country.
I'll be honest with you, Brandon. The way I've kind of always looked at this game heading in is I don't think there's a ton at stake for Oklahoma. I don't think 11-2 is going to be all that different than 10-3 when we reflect on the year and what it meant for the Sooners and how close they were in the grand scheme of things to not only playing for a Big 12 championship, but potentially playing for a berth in the college football playoff. It's all going to be about those midseason losses to Kansas and Oklahoma State, and that's what you're going to remember. I don't think, for the most part, anybody is going to have much recollection of what happens in the Alamo Bowl. What they might remember on an individual basis is how Jackson Arnold looked in his first career start. I think that is the thing, naturally, that injects a lot of intrigue into this matchup because, again, 20 years from now, if Oklahoma goes 10-3 this season or they go 11-2, we're not going to remember this season much differently for the first. I mean, on the large scale, when you look at those 13 games as a collective, what we might remember it for, what we might remember this game for, this Alamo Bowl for, is the genesis of a legacy for Jackson Arnold. Because if he is all that he's cracked up to be at the University of Oklahoma, he's going to leave as one of the greats under center at the university. So this is his opportunity to make a strong first impression. And look, I understand he played quite a bit in garbage time early in the year. He played the second half against BYU, but for all intents and purposes, this really is Jackson Arnold's chance to make a first impression. He wasn't asked to do a ton in that BYU game. He wasn't asked to do a ton in garbage time. He's got full control. Training wheels are coming off. This is his
Yeah.
show as of tomorrow night. So that to me is what we will remember the most about what happens in the Alamo Bowl. And that is probably the only thing that we will remember from this game as far as how it impacted or capped more accurately the Sooners 2023 campaign.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you on the Jackson Arnold stuff. But I think that also goes hand in hand in what I was saying, because let's just say, heaven forbid, he goes out there and he doesn't play well. That to me is another moment. That kind of kills the vibe people have for him, not just in Norman, but the expectations for him are to be a legit player, like you said, an all-time great. Like, he's got a lot on his shoulders that he has to live up to, and this dude's never really played a significant down outside of the BYU game in the second half. It just, I don't know. It just feels like if I guess if Oklahoma loses and he plays well, I guess you can chalk that up to, okay, things are probably moving in the right direction a little bit there. But at the same time, you're going into the SEC. It would be probably nice to represent your conference with a bowl win, right? Like, I think there's pressure. I think the pressure is honestly on Oklahoma more so than it is Arizona in this. Yeah, is that, I guess that would be fair to say, right?
I think so, because right now, if you're Arizona, what you've accomplished already in 2023 is more than enough to build upon heading into 2024. It is a significant step up from where they were the year prior and certainly the year before that. And it's a building block for Jed Fish and his program. And I feel much the same about Oklahoma. I feel as though what Oklahoma has already accomplished in 2023 is enough for them to use as a launch pad as they head into the SEC. But that's where the standard comes into play, right? The standard
Yeah.
for Arizona football is different than the standard for Oklahoma
And they
football.
talked
And
about that today.
that's kind of where I make the distinction. And so I would say, yeah, this probably does matter a little bit more for Oklahoma than it does for Arizona, but they're in similar circumstances.
Okay. So you have obviously been down there and you've been to some of the practices. We're going to talk about transfer portal stuff, folks. I promise you, we're going to get into all that. I know that's on everybody's mind. Everybody wants to talk about the Geno Vandermark stuff. They want to talk about Casey Thompson. There's a horde of things. And I think there's a guy playing right now that everybody is actively watching at Oklahoma right now, going, is he or is he not going to join the portal? Like, there's always rumors, obviously. So, the freshmen, the guys that you got to see at practice, you talked about on the pregame podcast. What stood out to you? There were 7 guys, obviously, the early enrollees that got to go down and go through both practices with the team.
Yeah.
And essentially goes, do they get to stand on the sideline, or like what's the rule there? Do we know?
I believe they get to stand on the sidelines. I don't think they get to suit up. I was having a
Understood.
conversation with somebody tonight that, well, I'll put it this way. They should know what's going on. And even to that individual, it was a little unclear as to what exactly they
Right.
can do. But yeah, they can be with the team. They can stand on the sidelines. I just don't believe that they are allowed to, put on pads and officially be available to play in the game, because they're not available to play in the game. But for them, it's more about getting the collegiate experience, being able to relish something cool down the stretch in their final semester of high school, and get a sense for what they're getting themselves into come March, when they do strap on the pads and go full speed, and they're no longer just a high school kid kind of enjoying the experience of playing in a bowl game just for the heck of it. No, like at that point, it becomes real for those dudes.
Yeah.
And I said it on the podcast. I'll say it again. All 7 of those dudes looked like they belonged. And that is a testament to the type of athlete that Brent Venables and this staff have been able to recruit across the board, because you have, I mean, let's count how many different positions you have early enrollees at. You have a cornerback in Eli Bowen, a safety in Jaden Hardy, 2 defensive ends, a defensive tackle. You have a running back, you have a quarterback. And so all across the board, you got guys that look the part. And I mean, that's really the only conclusion you can draw this early with those guys. But even so, like Josiah Wagner is a perfect example. Josiah Wagner is a guy that turned out to be quite the asset for Oklahoma in his freshman year. But when he showed up to campus, man, he was tiny. He was tiny.
He's still tiny. I mean,
you knew who he was.
Yeah.
When you saw him in spring with the pads on alongside his teammates, because he looked like a high school senior, and he should have been at that point. He enrolled a semester early. But I think the fact that every single one of the 7 that's practicing with Oklahoma right now looks the part and does not look out of place, I think is a testament to how Venables and the staff have leveled up their recruiting efforts. So super excited for those 7 and so many other members of the 2024 class that I think can be impact guys for Oklahoma in short order.
Yeah. Let's dive into it. Gino Vandermark ended up deciding to stay at Michigan State. I'm trying to. It was a weird deal, Parker. You know this more than anybody.
Yeah,
like that. It was weird because he had told OU, "I'm coming to Oklahoma," and then kind of called him and said, "Look, Michigan State threw some money at me. Obviously, my girlfriend is out there. I have some things I need to think about." He visits Oklahoma officially, says again, "I'm coming to Oklahoma." Leaves, and not within 24 hours, you start to hear this. This thing's going back and forth again. And he wavers, says, "I'm coming." Wavers, says, "I'm coming." Wavers, and finally, it just got to the point where I think both parties were just kind of like, "You know what, dude? Your heart is not here.
Yeah,
probably need to stay there."
Yeah, no doubt. Because I mean, if his heart was there, if Oklahoma was what he wanted, he would have committed after the visit. I mean, it's as simple as that. And there will be options.
He would have announced after the visit.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. Well, yes. I committed publicly, I guess I should say. But there'll be other options for Oklahoma. I mean, and you bring it up. There were Michigan State insiders that were dropping predictions for Vandermark to land at OU, which just kind of tells you where that thing was.
Brian Doan
a week ago, and then and then here we are, and he's going back to Michigan State. So it is what it is, you know. Vandermark is a guy you would have liked to have, sure, but not an outlier by any means in the portal in terms of his talent level. You can find comparable guys in the portal elsewhere, and I think the Sooners will. Febechi Nawawu certainly, in my mind, offers a higher ceiling than Vandermark, and so I think you got the guy that was the higher priority. And the guy that if you had to choose between the two, you would have preferred to have. So to get Nawawu is big. And moving forward, look, offensive guard may not be a position that Oklahoma needs to shore up right this second or before the spring semester starts in January. That's not to say they won't, but if they end up not adding another offensive lineman before spring ball, guess what? There's that second wave that always comes post spring games in April. And there will be linemen available that are good enough to play high-level football at the University of Oklahoma. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, so let's call it what it is. It gives the people that aren't in the portal, it gives the other programs around the country more time to tamper. I mean, let's call it what it is. Like it
sure.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Let's call it what it is. You're going to get what you want eventually. I'm not saying Oklahoma per se. I'm just saying college football in general, that is like actively known, because we have heard dudes that have hit up Oklahoma players like just actively trying to get them other programs just back channeling like crazy trying to get to those guys. It's a wild west right now, and it's going to continue to be that way. I want to say this because there's on Fabici Nawawu. There's this idea that even though he's a freshman All-American in 2022 and he was really good last year, that he didn't get that many offers. And I want you to confirm this with me. He got offers. He had plenty of offers. Everybody and their dog was after that guy. The issue is the second he got in the portal and he got in contact with Seth Luttrell, and Seth Luttrell became the offensive coordinator, that was a wrap. He essentially, from talking to my North Texas sources and then sources around Norman, essentially told him, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to Oklahoma no matter how much I get paid, no matter what, because I want to go play for that guy. He is so loyal to Seth Luttrell. So
And
loyal.
what everyone ought to understand, if they don't already, is that in general, transfer portal dudes don't post all the offers they get. They're not like recruits where, as a sophomore or junior in high school, you're so enamored with the attention that you're getting and obviously proud of the offers that you earn that you're going to post every single one. Most every high school kid is going to post all the offers that they earn. Not so for transfers, because everything is happening at an accelerated pace. They've been through that whole process already. They've gotten the accolades and the recognition. And it's more so just about processing a decision in a very limited amount of time and being able to whittle things down to a few top contenders in short order and pick your next destination. And look, another great example of this is Caden Willard, right? You think Oklahoma was the last offer Caden Willard got? Because he hit the portal yesterday morning, and by the end of the day, he had Texas A&M, he had Missouri, he had Kansas, he had Mississippi State, he had Indiana, and then he got the Oklahoma offer. You think Oklahoma was just it? Like, schools stopped hitting him up after that? No, trust me. He's getting more calls. He's gotten more calls. There are plenty of other schools interested in the dude. The reason he stopped posting the offers is because, well, okay, now it's time to get down to business, and he's got two schools in Oklahoma and Texas A&M that he views as very viable landing spots. And I will be 100. I'll keep it real here. I'll keep it 100. I think Oklahoma leads right now for Caden Willard, and there should be a visit taking place here within the next week to week and a half. And I would not be shocked if he is committed to Oklahoma by the time he leaves Norman, because Miguel Chavis has made a very, very strong early impression there. They like him a lot. Miami of Ohio transfer, for those that aren't familiar, 6'5", 250
why are you? They
pounds.
keep going after these G5s, Parker and FCS.
Well, and it's always funny to me when people act like G5 dudes that have produced are chopped liver, right? Because like, they'll go gaga over a guy who has 10 sacks in a season at the high school level, but a guy who has 10 sacks in a season in the MAC, like, oh, we don't want any part of that dude. Think he's going to be able to make a
Fist
competitive
turned out
jump?
pretty good at Florida State. First round pick.
Yeah. No,
well, I'm telling you that both of those guys that came out that year, I can't who was the other one? His other dude from the defensive end.
Braden Fisk.
No, defensive tackle. Central Michigan had another guy, his teammate, that was a defensive tackle that ended up being
I know.
too.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Dude, it's like Albany. It's like the dudes from Albany and Central Michigan, and essentially Miami, Ohio has produced some really good defensive linemen over the years too. So, like, it's just linemen in general, I think.
And like, Ohio is a talent-rich state too.
Yeah,
it really is. And when you have a talent-rich state, there are going to be guys that fall through the cracks every single year.
Yeah.
And Caden Willard definitely appears to be one of those guys because he got to Miami. He saw the field as a true freshman, played in 10 games, became a starter thereafter, started as a sophomore, started as a junior, and most recently in his junior year here in 2023, recorded 9.5 sacks. Again, he is 6'5", 252 pounds. That athleticism and that natural ability to get after the quarterback, that's going to play. It
And
will.
I know
And
I'm going to say this, there's another potential entry into the portal that I know very well, um, from the from a Big Ten, from a prominent Big Ten program. They're not 100% sure they're going to enter, but I will say that this person plays for a Big Ten program, and this person was very high on not only Clemson when they came out of high school, but Oklahoma and a few others. This person was ranked fairly high as well. So,
I think I have a good idea of who you're talking about. The chat might
um,
as well, but
I don't, I don't know. This one's interesting. It was, and only because this person, they hit me up today saying that they're thinking about entering, and I think if they did enter, my gut tells me Oklahoma would probably kick the tires around there as well, and they would probably see if they could make room if if they enter. And I think they're at the right now as far as the entry grassroots level, like
well, and
talking.
like let's just
So
let me peel back the curtain here a little bit for some
yeah.
folks that don't catch what is right in front of their faces. Brandon, if a kid is hitting you up, if a kid is hitting the Oklahoma Insider up
Mhm.
to let you know that he's thinking about entering the portal, it's pretty safe to assume at that point that as long as he's a go on the OU end, as long as they're willing to take him, he's going to have a lot of interest in being a Sooner too.
Right, right. So we'll see. We'll see how all that will pan out down the line. There's a lot of names in there, and I'm not gonna. I'll just say that they're all misses. So, um, just they all are all wrong. So, anyways, yeah, it's that. But my point of bringing that up is that just because Oklahoma, the Chris McClellan situation, right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, Oklahoma missed out. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Brent Venables didn't even talk to him over the last 2 weeks. That's coming from Chris McClellan's father, by the way. So, like, Oklahoma backed up after they did the in home. Obviously, they found out, and you put a great tweet out there about it, Parker. Um, it's not that they can't pay the NIL that was being thrown around. There's a willingness and want to, because in that case, Oklahoma feels like maybe they have better fits on campus. They're bringing in better fits, and or they feel like there's going to be somebody that hits the portal that is a better fit. And then guess what happened? 24 hours later, Caden Woolard hit it. Now he's not obviously the same size, nor does he play the same position. But my point still stands that you never know what's going to happen in the portal, particularly from now up until I think it's what January. When's the cutoff date, Parker?
I think it's
Uh,
January 3rd. Um,
to enter?
maybe I'm wrong.
I thought
No,
it
it
was
was
after. It was after the national title.
yeah, you're right. I
I
was
think
thinking
it's
that was
like 12th or
December
11th or 13th
December
or
3rd, I
something like.
think was the date they
Yeah,
could start getting in. But no, it's a good
but
point,
that
Brandon, because
yeah.
like, and I think the guy that maybe illustrates your point a little bit better would be Nick Scorton from Purdue, because when he hit the portal yesterday, I I don't know what got around. I got numerous texts almost simultaneously from people asking, "Hey,
January
did
2nd is the
OU?"
cutoff. You were right, by the way.
Oh, January 2nd. Okay, nice. But I got multiple texts from people
Hmm.
asking me, "Hey, did OU tamper with Nick Scorton? Is he coming to OU?" And it did not take long to shoot that down. But
Oh,
There
Texas
was,
A&M talked to him.
yeah, well, there
He's
was a
from
sense
Bryan,
of,
Texas.
and there's a sense of disappointment, right? When you immediately find out that Oklahoma's not going to be a player for a guy like that, because he's obviously a high impact dude and somebody that has legit high round NFL draft potential. But what happens a couple hours later? Boom, Caden Willard's in the portal.
Yeah.
So just because Oklahoma isn't willing and able to go over the top to bring X guy in does not mean they're going to be up a creek without a paddle, because Y guy could pop onto the radar and you can you could have a much easier time landing that guy than you would his predecessor in that sense. And I think Oklahoma is just going to, they will have a much easier time all around recruiting and landing Caden Willard than they would have had with Nick Scorton. And I think the same can be said for Chris McClellan, right? Is he a good player? Yes. Now, do I have the same concerns about his motor that I did when he was coming out of high school? Absolutely. Like I truly don't think McClellan would have been an every down wreaker of havoc at Oklahoma, but he would have certainly added value to that room. There's no question about it. However, are you going to go blow for blow with Missouri in the NIL department over a guy that, although he has been impactful at the collegiate level, has not been a true standout in that sense? No, not necessarily, because I think, especially at a place like Oklahoma, you're confident that A, there will be players of that caliber that enter the portal later on down the line, or above that caliber for that matter. And B, those guys are going to have interest in coming to the University of Oklahoma and are probably going to, there will be at least a few that are willing to make it easier on you to reciprocate that interest than McClellan was.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just the thing with McClellan that always attracts everybody is his potential is limitless. Like it really is. Like his potential is out of this world, but he's never reached it. Whatever has caused him not to reach it, it just has never really happened. Now, at Owasso, he would you would see some games where he would just tear it up, right? Just absolutely tear it up. And then there would be games where he would just be non-existent to an extent. And that has to do with a motor and just willingness and want to and all that. And but that's very common with defensive linemen and offensive linemen at the high school level because they know they're bigger, better, stronger, faster than everybody else. And if they really wanted to, they could dominate a game. A lot of guys get bored at that level. But at college, he just never really materialized into that player that everybody thought he could be at some point in his career. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to a Missouri, but we haven't seen it. And that's kind of where Oklahoma was at, where they were just like, as you said, there's just could be somebody the exact same that's not going to ask for as much. We're going to have people willing to pay as much that they can go in and get and come in and fit their culture, fit their system, and then potentially reach their ceiling, right? And I think that is what you're looking for in the transfer portal. Anybody that thinks that you're going to go out and grab, like the Caden Warlords of the world, they're trying to step up. Getting a P5 guy that has that type of production is the Walter Nolans of the world, they just don't happen. Like they don't happen. And that's why everybody's willing to throw millions of dollars at them because they don't happen.
Yeah.
And they're game changers.
To kind of underscore that point a little bit more too, when a Power 5 guy that has produced hits the portal, you have to ask the question, why is he hitting the portal? Now, sometimes there is a very obvious, very logical reason, i.e., a coaching change. It is altogether understandable that a program like Texas A&M would be experiencing a portal exodus. Or when a program doesn't lose their head coach but cleans house on staff, like Florida did, okay, it makes sense that Princely Umanmielen might be out there on the market. But
Or Burks. How about Burks? I mean,
yeah, but for
he
guys
wanted a
that
quarterback.
don't fall in that category, or in those categories, I should say, you have to ask the question, what are they trying to get out of it by entering the portal? What incentive do they have to leave their current program and look for a new one?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer stares you right in the face. Sometimes it's not immediately apparent, but any way you slice it, there's always a reason. And if the reason isn't a coaching change or a very obvious lack of mesh with the leadership, the administration, the staff, whatever, then generally, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but generally, all those guys are doing is looking to get a bigger payday.
Yeah, no doubt. Parker, do we have an ad read
We
that we need
do.
to?
By the way, let me hang on. I gotta get the copy in front of me here. But this episode of the OU Insider YouTube Live is brought to you in part by our friends at Manscaped. Ballsmas is over, tragically. No one is sadder than Brandon about it. But
Mm,
you can step into 2024 with confidence thanks to Manscaped, where resolutions are met and hairs are neatly kept. So, as the new year approaches, why not make self improvement a breeze by keeping your body well groomed? The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is here, and it's got futuristic tendencies. Included in this bundle is the brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer, and the essential aftercare products like the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant, as well as 2 free gifts, the Boxers 2.0 and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. So resolutions may come and go, but a well-groomed you is here to stay with Manscaped's latest and greatest. Start the new year right, because when you look good, you feel good. Manscaped is helping you sculpt the best version of yourself for the year ahead. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code OU Insider at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use code OU Insider. Happy New Year to your balls.
Say thank you. All right. All right. So let's talk about. I guess there are a few people in the chat that are asking questions. Um, I'll give this caravan guy has been asking why we don't interact with the live chat. We do. Um,
There's just a lot
there,
of chats.
there's a lot. It's hard to really keep up with, three,
We
400
couldn't stay
people at
on
a time.
task if we
Yeah,
interacted with every single
that's why
chat.
we do the super chat.
That is why we do the super chat.
That said, I let's talk about just the future. You're going down to okay. You know what? We can do that on another live chat. Well, let's keep this centric of what's going on transfer portal and the game tomorrow. Um, 3 keys to the game. What's your thoughts?
3 keys to the game. Number 1, establish the run, because well, and I think that is like it sounds like the
Coach
most
speak.
thanks Captain Obvious take in the world, but like there's gonna be I'm not gonna say it's gonna be tricky for Oklahoma to accomplish, but there's gonna be a different cast of characters on the offensive line, and that's gonna be the major question mark in a lot of people's minds for Oklahoma in this game. But if you can establish the run like you did last year against Florida State, when you faced a lot of those same questions. You had some opt-outs for the bowl game, guys getting ready for draft preparation. You had injuries, you had portal entries. And so Oklahoma, with a second team offensive line last year, for the most part, dominated Florida State at the point of attack when it came to opening the run lanes. And if the Sooners can do that for Gavin Sawchuk, then I believe that makes Jackson Arnold's job infinitely easier, because Arizona's got some defensive talent. They're a pretty good defensive team. If you can punch them in the mouth in the run game, man, at a certain point, Arnold's going to be able to take the top off. And They're playing in a dome. They're not playing in that mountain air in Provo. So he's not likely to miss a couple of those downfield throws that he missed when we saw him in his first real extended meaningful action. So that's key number one for me. Key number two, make sure you limit Arizona's receivers' ability to pick up chunk gains. And if that means conceding 6-7 yards here and there, that's great. That's fine. But Noah Fafita is a guy that is going to try to burn you down the field. They've got receivers that have the ability to burn you down the field. And so for Oklahoma, I think what is key in this game is that they limit the damage in that capacity, because I don't think you're completely powering Fafita down. I don't think you're completely powering these receivers down. But if you can limit the big plays, that to me is what's going to keep you in position to win this football game, because you give a team like that some juice, you give them some momentum. They've won 6 games in a row, right? They're feeling themselves right now. They're in a groove. And so whatever you can do to make their job more difficult in terms of having to sustain drives and stay after it and build upon play after play after play, first down after first down after first down, and not surrender those big chunk gains that'll make a scoring drive 5 or 6 plays instead of 10 or 12. That, I think, is where Oklahoma can find success in containing the Arizona offensive attack. And then key number three, I would say, is there's got to be a guy that clicks with Arnold. I don't know who that is, but Arnold has to have a guy tomorrow, whether that's Farouk, Nick Anderson, Drake Stoops, Jaden Gibson, Austin Stogner, whoever that may be. There's got to be a guy that Arnold can trust and develops that rapport with, to be able to look his way when he's under duress and trust that he can go make a play, that he can put the ball in that spot, and that his guy's going to be able to go make a play on the ball, because that's what Drake Stoops was all year for Dylan Gabriel. He was the go-to guy. When Dylan Gabriel needed a throw, when the Sooners needed a first down, they needed to move the chains, they needed to sustain a drive, Drake Stoops was the guy that Dylan Gabriel was looking for. And I don't know who that's going to be for Jackson Arnold. I think what little we saw of him through the air in the BYU game indicated that Jalil Farouk happened to be that guy on that day. I don't know if it'll be more of the same tomorrow, but I think there has to be a wideout that demonstrates to Arnold that he is capable of being the go-to guy when the chips are down and you got to have it. Because especially for a young quarterback making his first start, having that guy is going to increase his confidence level, especially in those crunch time scenarios, third down situations, when he knows he can look that particular individual's way and trust that they're going to move the chains. Confidence, like you and I know as well as anybody what a confident Jackson Arnold looks like on the field, and he's a dangerous customer. Yeah. If he can develop that confidence tomorrow, oh boy, it's going to be a show.
Okay, so what you said is right. I mean, the run, obviously, but I'm going to say this. I think as much as the run game always has to be established, and as much as we know Seth Luttrell and Joe John are going to establish the run, they are kind of grinded out. Obviously, Luttrell being an H-back in his playing days, running back, and obviously being a tight end coach most of his career. Similarly with Joe John Finley, right? So they're going to be a grinded out. They're going to be a make sure that OU's physical. I think that's obvious, but so I won't say that, but I do think they've got to stretch the field. They have to, because Arizona State's defensive backs are good. They're talented, they're experienced, they're good. And in my opinion, you've got to stretch the field. You've got to make them feel uncomfortable on the back end and test that talent, because you've got really solid talent at the wide receiver position. I would even say really, really good talent at the wide receiver position if you're Oklahoma. I can almost guarantee you they're going to use the tight end. I guarantee you Stogner is going to have a day. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you got two tight end coaches that are now the co-OCs. They're going to use the middle of the field. Jackson Arnold is proficient throwing over the middle of the field. That is going to make the safeties have to account for the middle of the field, which in turn is going to open up the outside wide receivers. That way, Oklahoma can use every little inch of the field the way that offense is designed to be used. And in turn, guess what else is going to happen? Sawchuk's going to find bigger holes. And I think if you can get all those things encapsulated into one, Arnold could have a big day, and he could really set himself up to be kind of a household name going into 2024. And I think that is, if anything, more than anything here, and I know I'm kind of getting off topic, that is what I think OU fans are looking for. I think that's what the nation's looking at Oklahoma for, is they want to see just how big of a name this number 10 is going to be in 2024. And this is what we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out tomorrow night. So, and number two, look, Fafita's not gonna. They get the ball out quick. They run tunnel screens. They run a lot of. They run a lot of multiple sets. They run a lot of. They like to use a lot of motion to get your eyes. I've been watching some of the Arizona stuff. Oklahoma has to play sound defense, obviously, but more than anything, they've got to be sound in tackling. I think if you allow Arizona to do what they want to do in their screen game, whether it's to the tight end, running back, wide receiver, and you start missing tackles, and let's say it's 3rd and 8, and they like to do kind of that mule shoe, where they throw that. It's not really, it's a screen, but it doesn't really look like a screen. It's more of a mesh route, a pick route behind the line of scrimmage, over the middle, where the quarterback drops back a little bit further, and it looks like a short crossing route, but it's behind the line of scrimmage. So the linemen can go down the field and they can block, and the wide receivers can block. If you start to get a lot of stuff out in space where you're missing tackles, it's going to be a long day for the defense. And the defense did not end on a good note, Parker, on the season. They had some clunkers in the year. They went from being really dominant to not doing much at all. So you've got to tackle well in space. You've got to limit 3rd down conversions. Anytime you start getting these 3rd down conversions and you start making them over the 50% range, big problem. And I think Oklahoma could lose if they're not able to do that. Number 3, match the intensity of Arizona. They're going to come out on fire. This is new territory for them. They have a chance to win double digits this season. New territory. That's happened, 11 times in the whole program's history? 11 times, Parker. Oklahoma's done that almost 20 times since 2020. So, there's a big discrepancy on the programs here. They're going to come out. You got to match the intensity. If you don't, again, it's going to be a long day, and I think they will. I think having Billy Bowman come back, like I said earlier, you have all this off-the-field momentum going your way, right? You're going to the SEC. You have your 2 stars coming back. You've got a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator. You got some transfers coming in, transfer coming out. Guys are going to be starting that normally didn't get to play a whole lot this year, across the board. So there's going to be some intensity, but can they match it player for player with Arizona? If they can, I think Oklahoma wins by 10 or more. If they don't, 10-3 maybe looking square in the eye.
By the way,
and that's just me.
Did you watch that USC game tonight?
I saw the first half where he had 4 touchdown passes. Yeah.
Miller Moss looked good, man. That. And again, goes back to it. Say what you will about Lincoln Riley. That man knows how to get the most out of his quarterbacks. And he is an offensive savant.
Real quick. Yeah, dude, that he does. He can get any quarterback to play well. OU fans, you got to agree with that. I mean, no matter how you look at it, the dude is The dude can develop quarterbacks. Jordan Hen, thank you so much for the super chat. Who do y'all think will have a breakout game tomorrow on the offense and defense? Can't say Arnold. Too easy of an answer. Okay. Great question, by the way, because we did this on our podcast. We talked about who we thought were going to be the breakout players. I believe I said Nick Anderson.
That doesn't count.
That Nick Anderson doesn't count
Nick
either.
Anderson doesn't count.
Gavin Sawchuk doesn't count.
No. If you're leading the team in
I'm
any
going to say
major
Austin
statistical
Stogner.
categories.
I'm going
Okay.
to say
I
Austin
like that.
Stogner.
I
I'm
like that. You
doing
can
it.
have that.
Austin Stogner is going to have a breakout game because the offensive coordinators are tight end coaches, both of them. So I think he gets 5, 6, 7 targets. I know that he and kind of like Dylan and Drake Stoops are close. That's the relationship that Jackson and and Austin Stogner have. Not quite as close, but they're very close, very good friends. So I'll say that. And on the defensive side, our Mason Thomas is going to have a breakout game. I said it on the podcast, the pregame pod. I'm going with it. Our Mason Thomas. He's finally healthy, Parker. He had 2 high ankle sprains, left and right ankle, both had a sprain.
Yeah, it's not fun.
He's healthy for the first time this year. He was healthy against TCU. He got his first sack of the season. I think he continues that. I'm going to even say this. I'm going to predict that he has 2 sacks. And that's really hard to do because Fafita gets the ball out quick. Who's yours?
Offensively, my answer is Brennan Thompson. Because
he scored, though. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
What do you mean?
He's had some big plays this year.
He's got like 5 catches all year. He's got like 5 catches.
5 for like 2 something. But okay, I got you.
Yeah. No, so look, I think that the way that they have utilized Brennan Thompson all year, the way that he's intended to be utilized, and I'll borrow a phrase from my colleague Teddy Lehman, he's the F-16 of the offense. If that's what you're using the guy for, well, naturally, I think it's fair to say his usage and his capabilities were a little bit limited by who was throwing the ball.
Right.
And Dylan Gabriel, because Dylan Gabriel had a propensity to underthrow the deep ball. And Brennan Thompson, admittedly, is a real easy guy to underthrow, but Jackson Arnold just has a ton more arm strength than Dylan Gabriel. We know this to be true. So I would bet you that on at least a couple of occasions, the Sooners trot in Thompson off the bench, tell him to do what really the only thing he ever does when he's on the field, which is freaking stretch it, go deep. And if he's able to get a step or 2 on his man, I'll bet you Arnold hits him and it goes for 6. Now, defensively, I'm going to say Robert Spears Jennings because he's going to get a lot more run with Key Lawrence out of the picture. And I think Peyton Bowen is probably the sexier answer, but don't forget about RSJ in that safety room because he was one of my absolute favorites in the class of 2022. He's a thumper who can run like the wind, by the way. People forget that. He can run. He's big. He hits hard. He can run. He's got instinct. I love what he brings to the table, and I think he's going to be in line for, if not a starting job, a very big piece of the pie in terms of getting rotational action at safety next year. I think that mission starts tomorrow night in the Alamo Bowl. I think he has a big game.
No, I think that's good. I think Caravan said Gentry Williams. Gentry's going to have surgery on his shoulder right after the game, so he's playing injured. He's got to remain healthy because I think if he gets hurt with as banged up as just the cornerback room has been, I don't know how healthy Makari Vickers is. We don't know how healthy Josiah Wagner really is. I think you're really looking at Jacoby Johnson potentially coming in and playing for you if that's the case. So I really hope Gentry stays healthy. I mean, that's kind of where I stand on that, obviously. I guess give our prediction for the game. You're on mute, bro. You're muted.
Unbelievable. Man, I brought myself in with such a flourish too, and it was all for naught. I said it on the podcast. I think the final is 31-27, Oklahoma. And I think Jackson Arnold leads a game winning drive. I don't know necessarily what that looks like. Could be with 5 minutes left, could be with 15 seconds left. But I think Jackson Arnold leads a drive in the fourth quarter to put the Sooners on top for good. I do expect it to be a back and forth football game. These are two pretty evenly matched teams, going back to our opening comments, a lot more evenly matched than I think many Oklahoma fans realize. And I think it'll be war for a full 60 minutes in the end. I trust Oklahoma to get it done in crunch time just a little bit more than I trust Arizona.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with it's going to be a close game, probably all the way through the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Then I think Oklahoma starts to pull away. When I say pull away, I believe I said 35-23 on the pregame podcast. I'm going to stick with that. 35-23, Oklahoma wins by 2 scores. It's just going to be one of those ball games to where I think both defenses play well. I think Oklahoma plays better in closing time. I just think they're going to be deeper, stronger, faster, more athletic, and impose their will as the game kind of comes to an end. And I won't be shocked if Arizona wins, but I just feel like Oklahoma is the more talented team. I think they're more talented. I think they're the more seasoned team. Outside of Jackson Arnold, I think when he gets really going, I think that's where he gets going, is he gets in a really good comfort zone in the third quarter and fourth quarter. And I think Oklahoma's offense becomes really hard to stop, and Oklahoma makes the stops in the fourth quarter that they need to make to pull away. There we go. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. Thank you guys for watching. I know it was later than usual, but we had to get this thing in for you guys. That's part of our deal. We always want to make sure we get our live done. We apologize for the late delay. Everybody's traveling, trying to get to their places, all that. So we'll be back on schedule next week. But thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're not on, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscribe. Try to get us to 15,000 before the end of January, please. We thank you guys so very much for being on here with us. You guys are an amazing fan base. We don't do this without you guys. That is a verifiable fact. So we're blessed to be able to do our job, and it's because of you. Also, OU Insider, lots of transfer portal notes, lots of game notes, lots of just a ton of recruiting stuff, all that's going on OU Insider VIP right now, oklahoma.rivals.com or ouinsider.com. You can go over there. You can sign up right now, $9.95 a month or $99.95, get you all the way through essentially the month of December of 2024. So you'll get all the way through the football season. You'll get all the way through the second National Signing Day, all this transfer portal, the spring practices, the junior days, Champion Barbecue, Party in the Palace, the SEC Media Days, OU's first SEC Media Days, fall camp, all the team off-season notes that we have covered. We try to get those a lot for you guys in the off-season, so we'll give you some updates of who's doing what, who's banged up, in the off-season, because it happens, who's had surgery, who's in all that type of stuff. We keep you updated on OU Insider VIP, and we'll have the spring coverage, and obviously the season coverage. The 2025 class is starting to heat up. Junior days in January. You're going to want to be a part of that because Oklahoma's already got one of the top classes in the country. They look to finish in the top 5 potentially in this coming class as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for being on here on the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, my name's Brandon Drum. We'll see you guys on the post-game podcast tomorrow. You guys have a blessed day.